She woke up before the alarm, even though she hadn't set one. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses gently against your ears and makes you aware of your own breathing. For a moment, she didn't move. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, watching the faint shadow of the ceiling fan blades, even though the fan wasn't on. It was a habit she'd developed years ago, back when mornings were rushed and silence was rare. 68. The number surfaced slowly in her mind, not dramatic, not heavy yet, just factual, like a receipt you glance at before folding it away. Today was her birthday. She turned her head toward the empty side of the bed. It had been empty for years now, but some mornings it still surprised her, like she expected to see a shape there, a shoulder rising and falling, a quiet presence she wouldn't have to speak to. She exhaled and sat up carefully, letting her feet find the cold floor. Her knees protested softly, as they always did, and she paused, hands resting on the mattress until the stiffness passed. She smiled faintly. Her body liked to remind her of time, even when her mind tried to forget it. In the hallway, the old clock ticked steadily. Tick, tick, tick. It had hung there since her children were small. Back then, it used to annoy her. Now, it felt like company. She went into the bathroom and flicked on the light. The mirror greeted her without judgment. She leaned closer, studying her reflection the way people do when they're trying to understand something familiar that is slowly changed. Her hair had more silver than brown now. Her face carried lines she didn't remember earning, though she knew exactly how they got there. She touched one gently near her mouth, remembering laughter that used to fill the kitchen, voices that once called her name 100 times a day. She wasn't unhappy with what she saw, just aware. She got dressed slowly, deliberately. Today mattered. Not because of gifts or cake, but because she wanted to feel present in her own life. She chose a blouse she hadn't worn in months, one her daughter once told her looked nice. She fastened the buttons carefully, smoothed the fabric, and stood a little straighter. In the hallway, she turned on the light and paused, as she always did, taking in the room. This was where everything had happened, where scraped knees were kissed, where late-night talks turned into early mornings, where arguments ended and began again. She put the kettle on the stove and filled the coffee maker. The familiar sounds grounded her. Click, pour, the gentle hiss of heat building. Her phone lay on the counter, face up. No notifications. That was fine, she told herself. It was still early. She made herself toast and sat at the small table by the window, watching the street wake up. A neighbor walked their dog. A car passed. Life continued, indifferent and steady. As she sipped her coffee, her thoughts drifted to the messages she'd received days earlier. She could almost see them floating in front of her. Yes, Mom, we'll be there. Don't worry, we've got it marked. The kids are excited. She smiled when she read them. She even felt silly for how relieved she felt. It wasn't that she doubted them, she told herself. It was just nice to know. After breakfast, she tied her apron. Cooking always helped her think. She washed vegetables slowly, letting the cool water run over her hands. She sliced them carefully, lining them up neatly. She seasoned the meat exactly the way her son liked it, even though she preferred it differently. Old habits, loving habits. The oven warmed the kitchen, and the smell of food began to settle into the walls, into the furniture, into memory. It reminded her of holidays when the house was full and she complained about being tired, about having no help. She smiled at the irony. She checked the clock, plenty of time. She moved around the kitchen, stirring, tasting, adjusting. Everything had to be right. Not perfect, just right. She imagined their reactions, her daughter complimenting the dessert, her son going back for seconds, the grandchildren barely sitting still. She imagined it so vividly that for a moment it felt like it was already happening. She stopped and laughed softly at herself. "Get a grip," she murmured. In the afternoon, she showered and dressed again, this time with more care. She pinned her hair back just like she used to when the kids were young, and she didn't want it falling. She sat there longer than she meant to. At first, she told herself she was just giving them time. Traffic, a late start, kids needing shoes tied at the last minute. She had made these excuses for other people her whole life, and they came easily to her now, lining up one after another, each one buying her a few more minutes of hope. The clock kept ticking. She watched the second hand move all the way around the face once, then again. She focused on it deliberately, as if watching time closely enough might slow it down or even reverse it. Her phone lay in her lap. No vibration, no sound. She picked it up and unlocked it again, even though she already knew what she would see. The screen lit up, blank and indifferent. She stared at it, then locked it again and set it face down on the table, as if turning it over could change its behavior. The smell of food, once comforting, began to feel heavy, like something waiting too long to be appreciated. She stood up and walked to the kitchen, lifting a lid, checking a dish that didn't need checking. Steam rose and fogged her glasses slightly. She wiped them with the edge of her sleeve and sighed. "They'll be here," she whispered, though the words sounded thinner now. She remembered other times she had waited like this, school plays where one of them arrived late, dinners postponed, phone calls promised and never returned. She had always told herself it didn't matter, that people were busy, that love didn't need constant proof. She wondered when she had started believing that. She went back to the window. Another car passed, then another. Each one triggered the same reflexive response in her chest, a small lift followed by a quiet drop. She pressed her hand flat against the glass, feeling the coolness seep into her palm. The sky outside had begun to change, the light softening, stretching shadows across the street. Evening was arriving, whether she was ready for it or not. She checked the time again. They were late now, officially. She sat back down and exhaled slowly, forcing herself to stay calm. She didn't want to spiral. She didn't want to assume. She didn't want to be that mother. She reached for her phone again, hesitated, then opened social media without quite knowing why. Maybe she was just trying to distract herself. Maybe she was looking for reassurance in some small, accidental way. The app refreshed. A photo loaded. It took a moment for her brain to process what she was seeing. Her daughter's face, smiling brightly. Her son beside her, relaxed, casual. The grandchildren clustered together, frosting on their fingers. A table, a cake. Not her table, not her cake. The caption sat beneath the image, cheerful and careless. Perfect family day. Her breath caught, not sharply, not dramatically. It just stopped for a second, like her body had paused to ask permission to continue. She stared at the photo longer than she needed to. She zoomed in without meaning to, not because she was searching for something specific, but because she didn't quite believe it yet. There they were, together, happy, somewhere else. She scrolled, more photos, different angles, laughter frozen in frames, moments happening without her. There was no mention of her birthday. No apology, no explanation, just joy, documented and shared. She set the phone down slowly, as if it were something fragile that might shatter if she moved too quickly. The house felt suddenly too large. The silence changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It pressed in on her, filled with unspoken things. She walked back to the table and looked at the place settings. She touched one of the plates, then pulled her hand back, as if realizing too late that it was real. She reached for the lighter and lit the candles. The small flames flickered, casting soft light across the table. It looked beautiful, almost romantic, almost right. She sat down in her chair. For a few seconds, she let herself imagine they were just running late, that any moment now the door would open and laughter would spill into the room, explanations tumbling out. She didn't rush into anything. That surprised her, too. For most of her life, she had been the kind of woman who reacted quickly, who fixed things before they broke, who stepped in before anyone had to ask, who filled silences before they grew uncomfortable. Now she moved slowly, deliberately, as if each step deserved to be considered. The list she'd written sat on the kitchen counter all morning. She passed it several times without touching it, making tea, washing a cup, standing at the window and watching the world go by. It felt strange to see her intentions written so plainly, stripped of emotion, just actions, just facts. By late morning, she picked up the phone and called her lawyer. The appointment was scheduled without fuss. No questions beyond the necessary ones. No curiosity about why a woman her age suddenly wanted to make changes. That suited her. After the call, she sat down again and let her thoughts wander. She remembered when she had first written her will, years ago, after her husband passed. Back then, it felt responsible, logical. Everything would go to the children. Of course it would. That was the order of things. That was what a good parent did. She had never revisited it. Not because she didn't care, but because she assumed it was settled, permanent, like love. Now it felt outdated, like a map drawn for a place she no longer lived. In the afternoon, she opened drawers she hadn't opened in years. Papers, receipts, old birthday cards saved out of habit rather than sentiment. She found one from her daughter, written when she was maybe 8 years old, letters crooked and uneven. "Happy birthday, Mommy. I love you." She held it for a long time. Then she placed it back carefully and closed the drawer. Not everything had to be carried forward. The lawyer's office smelled faintly of paper and old coffee. She sat in the waiting room, hands folded in her lap, observing the other people there, couples whispering, a man tapping his foot impatiently, a woman flipping through a magazine without really reading it. When her name was called, she stood calmly and followed. The conversation was straightforward. She spoke clearly, precisely. "I want to make some changes." Her lawyer raised an eyebrow slightly, but said nothing. He listened as she explained, his pen moving steadily across the page. Charities, organizations, causes she believed in, places where her money would do something instead of sit quietly as an obligation. "And my children?" he asked gently. She didn't hesitate. "Remove them." The words didn't hurt the way she thought they might. They felt accurate. When it was done, when the papers were signed and copies made, she left the office with a lightness she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't joy, it was relief. Next came the realtor. Her house was lovely, old but well cared for, full of stories embedded in the walls. The realtor walked through, commenting on the light, the layout, the location. "It'll sell quickly," he said. She nodded. She had known that already. She didn't tell her children. There was no announcement, no warning, no dramatic confrontation. She simply began the quiet work of letting go. Rooms were sorted one by one, clothes donated, books given away, items boxed carefully, then reconsidered, then set aside again. She realized how much of her life had been spent storing things for people who never came back to claim them. Some evenings she sat among the boxes and felt the weight of memory press against her chest. Other nights she felt nothing at all. Both states were acceptable. The house sold faster than expected. When the final paperwork was signed, she stood in the empty living room for a long time, keys resting heavily in her palm. She touched the wall once, then turned and locked the door behind her. She didn't look back. The beach town was quiet in a way that felt intentional, not empty, just unhurried. Her new place was small, clean, bright, close enough to the water that she could smell salt when the wind shifted. The community was full of people who had lived long enough to stop pretending. No one asked about her children. No one asked. The letter didn't reach them all at once. It arrived on different days at different times, sliding quietly into mailboxes like it didn't know the weight it carried. It wasn't sent certified. There was no tracking, no way to prepare for it. Just paper, ink, and the truth. Her daughter opened it first. She was standing in the kitchen, half distracted, phone propped against a jar while something played in the background. The envelope looked ordinary, familiar handwriting, though she couldn't remember the last time she'd received something handwritten from her mother. She frowned slightly as she tore it open. It took less than a minute to read. Her expression shifted, not dramatically, not the way it does in movies, just a tightening around the eyes, a subtle stiffness in her shoulders, confusion first, then disbelief. She read it again. "I gave you my life. Now I'm taking it back." That was it. No love always, no call me, no signature that softened the blow. Her daughter scoffed quietly and set the letter down, shaking her head. "She's being dramatic," she muttered to no one in particular. Mothers did that sometimes. They sulked. They made statements. They cooled off. She expected a follow-up call. It never came. Her son received the letter 2 days later. He opened it in his car, parked outside work, engine still running. He read it once, then again, jaw tightening. "What does that even mean?" he said aloud. He tried calling immediately. Straight to voicemail. He sent a text. No response. At first they were annoyed, then confused, then slowly, quietly, uneasy. Days passed, then a week. They began to notice the absence in ways they hadn't before, not the dramatic kind, the small ones. No check-in texts, no reminders, no birthday wishes for the kids, no comments on social media. Silence where there had once been constant, unnoticed presence. Her daughter finally called the house. The number was disconnected. That's when irritation turned into concern. They contacted neighbors. "She moved," one said. "Sold the place." Moved? Sold? No one had told them. They called the lawyer next, voices tense, questions tumbling over each other. The answers came calmly, professionally, without judgment. Yes, the will had been changed. Yes, the house had been sold. No, there was nothing to contest. The silence on the other end of the line was long. For the first time, the possibility surfaced, not that she was angry, but that she was done. Meanwhile, she woke up each morning to the sound of waves. Her days were simple now. She drank her coffee slowly, sitting by the window. She learned which mornings the beach was quietest, which paths stayed shaded the longest. She joined a small book group, not because she needed company, but because she enjoyed listening. People spoke without interrupting each other. No one demanded explanations. Sometimes she thought about her children, not bitterly, just curiously. She wondered when they would understand that love given endlessly without care eventually empties itself. One evening she sat on her balcony watching the sky darken. A neighbor waved from across the courtyard. She waved back. Her phone buzzed. A message from her daughter. "Mom, please call me." She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she set the phone face down and went back to watching the ocean. Not because she hated them, but because she finally loved herself enough to rest. And the tide kept coming in and going out, unbothered, unapologetic, just like her now. Regret doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in pieces, slipping into ordinary moments when there's nothing else to distract from it. For her children, it began quietly, in ways they couldn't immediately name. Her daughter noticed it first while folding laundry. She reached automatically for her phone to send a picture of the kids' mismatched socks, something her mother used to laugh about. Her thumb hovered over the screen, then stopped. There was no one to send it to anymore. She told herself it was fine. Still, the moment lingered longer than it should have. Her son felt it late at night when the house finally went quiet. He would sit on the edge of the bed, scrolling aimlessly, half expecting a message that wasn't coming. He told himself his mother was being stubborn, that she would come around. She always had before. Except this time, she hadn't. They talked about her more often now, not warmly, not yet, mostly in frustrated tones, trying to piece together what had gone wrong. "She didn't even tell us she was selling the house," her daughter said one evening. "Well, she didn't have to," her son replied, though the words sounded weaker than he intended. Neither of them mentioned the birthday, not directly. Meanwhile, life in the beach town settled into something steady. She learned the rhythm of the place, which cafe remembered her order, which bench stayed warm longest in the afternoon sun, which days the wind came strongest from the east. She began volunteering twice a week at a small local library, mostly shelving books, sometimes helping children pick stories. They thanked her with easy smiles, uncomplicated gratitude. She slept better. Her body still ached in the mornings, but her chest felt lighter. Sometimes in the quiet hours, she allowed herself to revisit old memories, not the painful ones, just fragments, the weight of a sleeping child on her shoulder, the sound of laughter echoing down a hallway that no longer existed. She didn't push those thoughts away. She let them pass. Her daughter finally drove past the old house one afternoon. The windows were different now, new curtains, a child's bike leaned against the porch railing. The place looked alive again, just not with her in it. Something twisted in her chest. She parked across the street and sat there longer than she planned to. For the first time, she wondered, not angrily but honestly, how many times her mother had waited like that, quietly, without complaint. Her son had his moment at the grocery store. An older woman struggled to reach an item on a high shelf. Without thinking, he helped her, holding it out with an easy smile. She thanked him warmly, her eyes soft. "You're kind," she said. The word followed him all the way home. They tried calling again, voicemail. They sent messages that sounded different now, less demanding, more careful. "Just checking in. We miss you. Please let us know you're okay." She read them, every one. She didn't reply, not yet. One evening, sitting by the water as the sun dipped low, she took out the letter she had kept folded in her purse since mailing it. She reread her own words. "I gave you my life. Now I'm taking it back." She wondered if they understood yet that taking it back didn't mean erasing them. It meant finally including herself. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her son. "Mom," the message read, "I think I finally understand. I'm sorry we didn't show up. I'm sorry for more than that." She closed her eyes. The apology wasn't perfect. It didn't undo years of being taken for granted, but it was something. She didn't respond immediately. She watched the waves roll in, each one arriving fully, then retreating without argument. That night she slept deeply. In the morning she wrote a short reply. "I'm safe. I'm well. I needed time." She pressed send. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It was an opening, and for the first time that felt like enough. She didn't hear back right away. And this time, that was okay. She went about her day the way she always did now, slowly, intentionally. She walked along the shoreline while the morning was still cool, watching seabirds trace lazy arcs through the sky. The ocean moved in its endless rhythm, never rushing, never apologizing for taking up space. She thought about how different her life felt now. Not louder, not fuller, just hers. When she returned home, she made herself lunch and ate it at the small table by the window. No television, no phone in her hand, just the sound of cutlery and distant waves. In the afternoon, she sat with a book, but found herself not turning pages. Her thoughts drifted not backward this time, but outward toward the strange, unfamiliar future she was still learning how to inhabit. That evening, her phone buzzed again. A message from her daughter. "We didn't realize how invisible you made us feel. I'm ashamed it took losing you to see it." She read it twice, then a third time. There it was. Not an excuse, not a defense, not a request, just ownership. She set the phone down and stared out at the darkening sky. The sun sank slowly, painting the horizon in muted oranges and purples. She felt something loosen inside her chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but softness, space where anger used to live. She remembered all the years she had swallowed disappointment to keep peace, all the moments she had told herself it didn't matter, all the birthdays, holidays, afternoons that passed quietly because she didn't want to be a burden. She understood something now she hadn't before. Love that costs your entire self is not love. It's erasure. Later that night, she called them. Not long, not emotional, just her voice, calm and steady. "I'm not angry," she said, "but I won't go back to how things were." They listened, really listened. "I still love you," she continued, "but love doesn't mean availability without respect." There was silence on the other end. Not uncomfortable, not defensive, just honest. They didn't ask her to come home. They didn't ask for money. They didn't promise sudden change. They simply said they understood. And for the first time, she believed them, not because of their words, but because they didn't rush to fix anything. When the call ended, she sat quietly for a long time. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel victorious. She felt complete. Weeks turned into months. Her relationship with her children changed shape. Fewer messages, more meaningful ones. No assumptions, no entitlement, visits discussed, not expected. She stayed where she was. The beach town became home. On her 69th birthday, she woke up early again, not out of habit this time, but excitement. She made herself breakfast and walked down to the shore as the sun rose. Her phone buzzed. A message. "Happy birthday, Mom. Wherever you are, we hope you're happy." She smiled. She didn't throw a dinner. She didn't wait by a window. She didn't light candles for anyone. She sat on the sand, shoes beside her, waves brushing close, and whispered the words to herself like a promise she intended to keep. "I gave you my life. Now I'm living it." And this time, no one forgot her.